Bring out the talent.
Bring out the talent.
Bring out the talent.
Welcome to Bring Out the Talent, a podcast featuring learning and development experts discussing innovative approaches and industry insights. Tune in to hear our talent help develop yours. Now here are your hosts, TTA's CEO and President Maria Melfa and Talent Manager Jocelyn Allen.
Hello, everyone. This is Maria, and I'm so excited for you to join us today.
Hi, guys. It's Jocelyn. We're back for season 2.
A recent article from Forbes revealed that a mere 26% of workers felt psychologically safe during the pandemic. Not only were employees feeling a lack of psychological safety, but they were also experiencing higher levels of burnout, stress, and greater feelings of loneliness. This is alarming for many business leaders and leaves many asking, what can they do to help employees feel psychologically safe, and how can they mitigate burnout? In this episode, we answer these questions and learn from an expert how to find teams thrive with Dr. Allessandria Polizzi. Dr. Polizzi is the CEO and founder of Verdant Consulting, former HR executive and a top 100 HR professional of 2020. Welcome, Dr. Polizzi, otherwise known as Al.
Dr. Al, yes. Oh my, I need that in my life.
Right.
I need
you
that.
see the preferential treatment. I mean, no, the completely unbiased, we love you treatment. Welcome. We're so excited to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm so glad that we can just call you Al, because as you know, I've messed up saying your last name a few times.
For the longest time, I thought Chevy Chase sang that song because of the music video too. So that was quite a surprise for me later in life.
Well, we really just aged ourselves because there's a large population that has no idea what we're
Everybody
talking
else,
about.
everybody knows what a podcast is, has no idea what Paul Simon is.
So we're so excited to have you today. I know that taking your resiliency class here at TTA, and some of us have already started their session. I'm starting my session tomorrow, so we can't wait. But before we get into your classes, let's talk a little bit about you, Al. So you have over 20 years of experience leading teams to unlock their potential and helping organizations thrive. What led you to start Verdant Consulting?
Well, thank you, Maria. My first career, I was an English professor. So I started my career trying to make the world a better place through education. And I taught remedial writing. I taught English as a second language. So my PhD actually is in literature because that was my first path. And then I moved into corporate education, change management, et cetera, et cetera. My life's mission is to make the world a better place through education. And so as I was experiencing my own journey with burnout about a year ago, and I started looking at the marketplace at what's out there and available, to me, there was just a big gap. And given my passion and my propensity to run towards messes and fix them, I decided to go ahead and try to build something that would have both met my needs as a learner, but also met my needs as a 20-year veteran of leadership development, talent management for large companies. So what I built was something that would help companies create the skills and capabilities, competencies within their organizations that are currently missing. And quite frankly, what some of the reasons why we see the burnout and the resignations that we do.
I love your message that your lifelong goal is to make the world a better place through education, because isn't that just the missing piece, right? If we just knew better.
It really is. I mean, to me, it started with empowering people who were unable to express themselves through the written word to do so and to be more effective in the broader cultural norms. But, you know, through change management and the work I've done within companies, I've been able to do that. And then now, of course, my goal is to help make this available for multiple organizations to take advantage of through our training affiliates and various programs that we offer.
Great. I mean, it's a great program. I've started it already and I've learned a ton of useful information, and I've shared that with you on the sessions too. You know, I'm not the quiet one when we're sitting in the sessions, but we'll talk a little bit more about your training later in the episode. But your focus is on implementing the latest scientific resiliency, burnout prevention, and psychological safety research to help people, teams, and organizations learn practical yet simple skills that will help them flourish. And one specific area of your focus that stands out to me is psychological safety. It's something that we're maybe hearing a little bit more of, but doesn't really necessarily have this like definitive, what is it definition out there. So can you explain what it means, especially at Verdant?
Yeah, so we lean on the International Standards Organization, ISO 45003 global guidelines around psychological health and safety, which talk about basically three things. We call it our C model, which is, do I have the structure in place in order to support psychosocial health, and have I identified psychosocial hazards? I know that's a big word, but basically, do I have systems and structures in place that help create or help accelerate, or do I have the structures in place that help clear the path for trust and connection? So the structure is one. The other is, do I work in an environment both within our organization, but also outside of it that would cause psychological safety threats or psychosocial harm, such as angry customers, high tense situations, high heat, long work cycles. They have nighttime schedules. Like, there's various things in your environment, but also low product availability, right? Problems with the supply chain. Those are also things that can impact psychological safety. And then the third one is the one that most people focus on, which is expectation of behavior. So, how we behave towards each other, part of how we bring psychological safety to life. And the big misnomer is that psychological safety is either always being nice or saying whatever's on your mind without thinking about the consequences. And it is neither of those things. It is creating an environment where I can take risks without the fear of punishment. And so those risks have to be calculated. They have to be thoughtful. They have to be respectful. But, just being nice, that means you take zero risk. But just being kind of slap happy means you're taking a bunch of risk without paying attention to the needs of others. Does that help?
Oh, definitely. It helps. Absolutely.
Can you give us some examples what a psychologically safe workplace looks like?
Yeah, Google really defined it in their work that they did in 2015. And, they talk about, I think it's 6 different components to a psychologically safe workplace, which is, I have the ability to make mistakes. I have the ability to ask questions. I have the ability to, to try and do. So that's pretty well defined. So an example would be, let's say that we are coming up with a new idea that we're going to roll out a new product line. Let's just say we're doing that. And I, on the line, who talks to customers all the time, I see a big flaw in the product. Either it's not going to do what the customer needs, or it's missing a key component. How, when, and where I raise that, or if I do, it represents psychological safety. If I feel like I can point that out, I can come to the table with ideas that I can ask questions to better understand. Were you aware of this? It's about having a debate and conflict around ideas, but not around people. So people smooth, ideas, have friction.
So from what you're saying, if you don't have a psychological safety environment, it certainly stops innovation and creativity.
Absolutely. And the ISO 45003, which I highly recommend people look at, calls out some of the financial risks to the organization, both from a physical safety point of view, as well as a business performance, litigation, and also, like you said, driving innovation. If you, especially in today's environment, when we have people who are experiencing change fatigue, burnout, exhaustion, given the volume of changes happening in the world at large, if you're going to try to implement innovation and change in your organization without investing in things like psychological safety, the likelihood of it being successful is pretty low. In fact, MIT just did a study of following the Great Resignation and the themes that have come up. And companies that are implementing innovation are 3.2 times more likely to lose their employees.
Say that again.
Yeah. So innovative companies are 3 times more likely to lose their employees during the Great Resignation. Now, toxic work cultures are 10 times more likely, but most people are like, well, but that's not us, but innovation drives that. And I strongly believe it's because of the lack of psychological safety.
Hey, it's amazing how you connect the dots to these kinds of things, that everything makes sense when you look at the big picture and you realize how it relates to you, but then you go back and you relate it to the business environment, the professional environment. And it's just, it's refreshing at the same time to see that life is life, and that our two beings, which have always been, this is me personally and this is me professionally, absolutely affect one another. And I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but one of the things that I really value about what I've learned from the information that you provide in your trainings is that and I actually talked to somebody, I talked to Keisha about this too, when we were talking about the training, because she was like, I love all of this. Like, for my personal life, I can see all of this happening. And she was like, I would love to see, how I can start implementing it in my professional. And I was like, for me, it's one and the same. Like, I don't feel like, and I think what I've struggled with up until like my reign at TTA, I call it a reign, look at me, after I started working at TTA, was that like, I realized that like, I can be better at my job when I'm the same person clocking in as I am clocking out. Like, if I don't have to worry about the face that I'm putting on to perform to a standard, like, I thrive. And it's like, that's the layman's terms of what you're talking about. Like, how do you not see the relationship between psychological safety and performance?
Yeah. And what you said, yes, what you said has been proven in the science, in the research. So what you just described, that misalignment of value increases likelihood of burnout, also increases turnover. Also, with you're doing work that you feel isn't valued, increases burnout. So there's specific causes of burnout that are related to organizational fit, structure, supervisor capability. And we know from research that only 20% of managers are actually up to the task. That 80% of managers don't have the interpersonal skills, the capability, not the desire, but the capability to lead in an effective way. And we've been doing all this work on leadership development, and that's the best we can do. To me, the missing piece is what we're talking about now, which is, let's talk about you as a leader, as a person, having needs, having your own background and experiences, and how do you manage that while you manage your team?
It's such a critical part of the learning process, psychological safety.
So, Al, does psychological safety look different now, since a lot of us are in a hybrid environment?
I mean, yes, obviously, that's such a good question. I think we're still trying to figure that out, to be honest. I actually am doing a talk on psychological safety in digital spaces later today. And, it's fascinating to think about things like informality, boundaries, our ability to be on all the time. Those are things we have to pay attention to. But also the nuance, and that, look, we are tribal creatures. We evolved to have social connection and to read into each other's social cues, physical cues. Without the ability to do that, and again, there's plenty of research on this as well, our brains haven't been wired to fully thrive in digital spaces. And so without that capability, we're a little behind on being able to do that as effectively as we can in person. For 200,000 years, it's been in person.
Good point.
Yeah, very good.
Been around a long time, around people.
And those of us who can do that well, who are the ones that survived.
Right. Exactly. We still here. Is that me? Bill? Do I like people? No.
Not that you enjoyed it, but that you were able to do it. No one said that you would get joy.
What is a survivor really, though? Do you think it's important to reorientate business leaders with these skills that you're talking about?
Oh, absolutely. And for two reasons, Jocelyn. One, for the better of the business. Well, all of it's for the better of the business. But one, for the betterment of their team. 60% of the causes of burnout are from your manager, your supervisor. But two, for them. Gallup showed that the only employee segment that increased its burnout in 2021 were people managers. We don't talk enough about the emotional strain of managing people, the emotional strain and load of getting feedback. We all have to process that, right? And, now everyone's like, oh, be vulnerable, be this, be that. And we don't help people learn, how do I do that? And also like manage my own needs, because those didn't disappear just because I got promoted.
So psychological safety must play a critical part in the learning process, because if you don't feel comfortable in an environment, it must make it difficult for you to learn, retain, and grow. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
That's part of the learning process, is asking questions, not being afraid of making mistakes, being able to try things out and feel comfortable doing so. Again, it's without that fear of repercussion. How many of us have been in those classrooms where no one says a word, no one asks a question, it's just complete silence, that things aren't landing, right? And so while we've known this to be true for decades, right? We've known this to be true for a very long time. It's not the what, it's the how, to me, that's been missing. So we tell people things. We tell leaders create psychological safety, which they don't even know what it is. We tell, facilitators, create a safe learning environment, leverage a growth mindset. But we don't actually teach people the mechanics of, okay, how do I do that? And how do I do that for me in a way that makes sense for me? And so that's the gap, I think, that we have, is helping people understand how your mind works and ways in which methodologies, scientifically proven methodologies, to implement psychological safety, recognize it, and then reinforce it in whatever space you're in, including the learning classroom.
So, Al, since you have a background in instructional design, how would an instructional designer develop curriculum that could help foster psychological safety? I could see how a trainer can help with those things, but how would the curriculum being developed could help these things?
I love this question. So I always go back to those three components of psychological safety: structure, environment, and expectation. So let's talk about structure. So in the instructional design, how do I create a structure that helps people feel connected, know where they're going, know why they're going there, gives them the space to ask questions in a safe way? How do I integrate the right structure of like understanding the times and, being able to give enough space and air to topics for discussion and question and interaction? So, creating that structure is part of the instructional design. By paying attention to the environment in which the person will be learning, right? So if I'm teaching someone who's going to be doing learning in a mobile device, do I use closed captioning? Do I create an environment? Do I understand the environment so that learning is taking place? And that if it's not, or there's an issue, that they can address it, right? Have I baked in things like feedback or, social connection, those types of things? And then, of course, expectation of behaviors. A good facilitator talks about expectations when they get started. So doing that if you're doing an e-learning or in the design, is part of setting those norms about what we expect and why.
That's a great question too, Maria. It was very interesting because we do kind of get requests like that sometimes, where what's the difference between somebody who can develop, a presentation to teach the curriculum, and then how would you self-pace it so that somebody's getting the same expectations and standards from something that is, in their LMS and being stored for future use? How does psychological safety affect business outcomes? You talked about this a little bit earlier. I'm talking about that there's research based on the financial outcomes that can affect not having a psychologically safe environment. Is there anything beyond the financial piece that it can affect?
Well, we talked about innovation as well, and adoption of innovation. So one of our clients we're working with, the resiliency training that we're doing is actually part of their business strategy in order to drive adoption of innovative, of pivots they've had to make as a result of the changing market. So without that, they haven't had the adoption of the programs that they've been expecting. And so their understanding is that by building that capability in their managers, where they're better able to navigate change and respond more effectively, then they'll be better able to implement those changes. So innovation is a key part. Obviously, employee retention and talent attraction, employee value proposition. Like I said, 10 times more likely to leave a toxic culture. So, and then also if you're driving innovation and you haven't thought about what in layman's terms for years we've been calling change management, but I think this is deeper. And again, not just the what, but the how. You run the risk of high turnover there as well. And of course, we all know that there's plenty of costs to being short-staffed, not the least of which is the inability to even just stay open, let alone manage customer care, and then the increased burnout on the people who stay.
And that's the cause and effect that you don't always think about and something that's often talked about too is what's happening to the people who do stay in an environment where psychological safety and, the culture, the positive culture isn't a focus. It's just everything's, well, this person can do it. Now this person will do it. This person will do it. And even worse, if that person is really good at doing all of those things. So I have a little bit of a different question. If you could say to an organization or to a person who's obviously in need of this training, like, I guess, what does that person look like? Who's your ideal audience for a training like this? And what would you say to them if they're not thinking about the fact that this type of a training could really help them on their journey?
Well, to me, this has to start at the top of the organization. That's the executive team. And if you're in an organization where the executive team thinks they have it all figured out and they're cool, there's no changes needed, that red flag, alert. And so, we say if the executive team doesn't have the interest in this work, then we don't have the interest in working with that organization, because there's just too many experiences that I have personally seen and had where you teach that layer down. And 50% of the class, you're talking about, well, why hasn't the executive team been here? And how am I going to be supported if I implement these things you're teaching me, Al? This is all great, but has this person been through it? Oh, okay. I can check out now because this is a waste of everybody's time.
Yes.
So I really think starting at the top. People will ask me, oh, well, what industry do you specialize in with this work? And I say, anyone where people experience stress. That's what we're teaching. We're teaching how to manage stress and what they call a VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous, which is the world we live in. Every time we think we've settled down, there's a new crisis. And that's not going to change anytime soon. So that's why equipping people. Now, I want to be really clear. I don't believe in equipping people with resiliency skills so the organization can be dysfunctional and treat people like crap. So it's not let's all let's
get thick skin together.
Exactly. Because notice how I talked about the structure and the expectation of behavior. And that's not just the individual person. That's the entire system.
I agree with you 100%. I'm thinking about a personal experience where somebody literally told me at a job once that if I wanted to grow, I just had to get thicker skin and not take things so personally. And I was like, why would you tell people that? Why is that an expectation that
if I had $1
be promoted, right?
Jocelyn, if I had $1.
Oh, and I can imagine too, because honestly, I would love to pick your brain about experiences that you've had, because I can only imagine in your profession as an HR, director, the stories that you've heard that then related to your burnout, that then contributed to the amount of work that you had to do, that then led to your burnout, that then led to what can I do for myself? And oh, wow, I could actually do this for other people too. What a journey.
It's funny because I spent most of my time as a learning professional, right? So again, first career college professor. Then I went into learning and development in the corporate space because to me, how exciting. I can teach people things they can apply tomorrow, right? Not when they graduate from college, and also get paid better. So I am always identified as a learning professional. However, about 6 years ago, I saw that the learning profession, it can be a little volatile. And so that's when I expanded into talent. But in my heart of hearts, I've always been an educator. And so the epiphany for me was, oh, I can be an educator for the world.
Yes, you do it, girl. I love it. I love what you're doing.
Following a great path. So as we conclude, can you tell us a little more about your programs?
Oh, yeah, I'd be glad to. So again, I designed my program based on what I would have wanted to purchase if I were back in my role as head of leadership development or talent. And so it is a modular program that blends instructor-led facilitation with micro-learning and also a little bit of nano-learning is what I call it, those bite-sized via our app. We have 3 programs. One is our signature resiliency, everyday resiliency program, which is 5 90-minute sessions. We have Resilient Leadership Program, which builds on that and teaches leaders how to understand the unique pressures that they experience as leaders and the mental models that they're implementing, as well as how to process feedback and show appreciation, again, with tactics, not why, but how. And then we have our psychological safety program that looks at the resilient organization that teaches people about identifying the structures, environment, and expectations in your organization and how to make changes to better create and foster psychological safety.
Well, we love the work you're doing, Al, and I'm really enjoying it. I know the rest of the team is going to start experiencing this week, but I think it's exactly what we want it to be, Maria. So I'm really enjoying it. The journaling piece alone, I'll go on another tangent. There's like 12 ways to journal, and it's like mind blowing. So I bought a specific journal and pens for my training because I am that girl, and I love it. I love it. I set time on my calendar every day to journal for 7 minutes.
I am so proud of you. That is amazing.
Star, tell everybody.
Star, well, it's class queen. Okay, so that's one thing that we get a lot of feedback on is that kind of the multiplicity of options, right? So you just said there's 12 ways to journal. That doesn't mean to journal 12 ways. That means that I give you 12 different ways that you can pick from that will work for you as an individual. And we do that for everything. We do that for mindfulness. We do that for understanding your gifts. We do that for everything we do. We give people multiple options because no one option is the right one.
I love it. It's just such a cool thing that you're doing. So now, new to season 2,
here we go.
A fun little segment that we like to call the TTA 10.
It's the TTA 10 final questions for our guest.
All right, Allessandria. So what we are doing is we have 10 questions that we're going to ask you. They have nothing to do with the episode that we just recorded here, but everything to do with the guest, which is you. So I'm going to ask you these questions. I want you to answer them as quick as you can. And if we get through all 10, you get a special prize.
Wow, I'm so excited. First of all, you know how competitive I am. Let's go.
Right. Here we go. What's your favorite color?
Red.
Who's your favorite musical artist?
Oh my gosh, Norah Jones.
Oh, good one. If you could live anywhere, where would it be?
I live in Sweden.
Oh, good one again. What's 6 plus 5?
Oh my God, 11.
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to give you the confirmation you are correct. What zoo animal would you most like to have for a pet?
Well, I already have a parrot, so I would love to get one of those tiny little monkeys. A marmot? No, a tiny monkey.
The tiny monkey, the M monkey. Whose face is on the $20 bill?
Girl, I do not. Andrew Jackson? No, I have no idea.
I think
Fail.
It is Jackson. It is Jackson.
It is Jackson. Thank you.
The Kool-Aid man just burst through your wall. What does he say?
Oh, yeah.
If you could choose any other career, what would it be?
Stand-up comedian.
I love it. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Absolutely, with jalapenos.
Oh, I'm going to try it.
I work for a pizza company, so.
I like it with bacon. So I like all 3, triple threat. I'm not going to lie. It sounds good. What was your most recent Netflix binge or other streaming service?
Oh, thank you. Well, right now I'm rewatching all of RuPaul just because it's my go-to mindless thing, but we're also rewatching Baskets with our son.
Okay, very cool. Great choices. And that is the TTA 10. Yay!
So I totally got my favorite color wrong. It's not red, it's teal. But whenever I play a game, I like to pick red. So,
well, thank you so much, Al. This was a true pleasure. Thank you for all your great work. And our team is really looking forward to learning how to become more resilient and psychologically safe.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for participating and raising awareness around this topic.
You were wonderful, Al. Thank you for your time. So if you're looking for more information on Al and the trainings that she offers, or if you yourself want to become a part of the TTA Talent Network, visit us at thetrainingassociates.com. We'll see you next time.